So let's move in now to the kind of like we're graduating here. We're getting into perimenopause and menopause. Such a hot topic. Let's see what we can clear up and bust some myths here. So perimenopause can actually be a 10-year period, no pun intended. It can be the 10 years leading up to menopause, and it can start as early as age 35. Now, again, I want to add this caveat because I think a lot of women are assuming that they're in perimenopause like I did when I turned 40, but they're not. They're actually just experiencing hormonal imbalance. There's no actual test for perimenopause. We actually test for menopause in arrears. What does that mean? So menopause is one day after 12 consecutive months of not having a period. So if you go 12 months of not having a period and then you get a period on day 366, you're not in menopause, you're still in perimenopause. So it's diagnosed, if you will, in arrears, which is not very helpful to women, right? Because the symptomatic time is perimenopause, and that could be freaking decades. So let's talk about this. Let's take a visual of like what's actually happening. So again, there's no single test for perimenopause. I think this is where, it'll drive some women crazy because you're trying to get, your FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and like LH and luteinizing hormone, and your estrogen and progesterone tested, and you got to do it in these right windows. It can be maddening. It can be absolutely maddening. What we would recommend, by cleaning up your lifestyle, which is what we teach in our 12-week programs, Awaken Your Nutrition and Awaken Your Cycles. By cleaning up your lifestyle habits and focusing on real tangible things that you can integrate easily into your life, take that as the first approach. Because even if let's say you are testing and you're testing for perimenopause, and let's say like you are there, or even in menopause, you still need to implement the basic lifestyle changes. It's like the same across the board. Want to lose weight? You need to implement these basic lifestyle changes and habits. Want to build muscle? Same friggin' thing. Like imbalanced hormones, suffering in perimenopause, same approach. There's like little tweaks and dials that we change at a bio individual level, but the approach, the overall lifestyle practices of bringing homeostasis and balance into the body, they are the same. You can't bypass them. So it's kind of like, do you want to drive yourself crazy with trying to find this test and then looking for this magic bullet where, things like hormone replacement therapy, even the bioidentical pellets and whatnot, they're not necessarily going to give you much symptom relief if you're not doing the basics first. It's a tool, but you want to implement the basics first. So let's get into this. Perimenopause, say it with me now. It's a second puberty. Your brain is adjusting to a new level of hormones in the body. So we are so used to, for all of our reproductive years, look at this beautiful, beautiful, steady, ideally, right? So if you're experiencing, if you have PCOS and endometriosis and some of these other hormonal imbalances, or you're on birth control, you're not going to get this nice, development and release and production of hormones in your reproductive years. But let's just assume, for the sake of explaining this, that you do have this, right? So you have this beautiful estrogen and progesterone released and produced during your reproductive years. What's happening here in perimenopause, in that decades-long time period, is your body recalibrating to eventually less estrogen and then less to zero progesterone. And it's hard. It's a hard shift. So what's wild is during this time, your estrogen can actually peak up to 3 times the normal level of estrogen during your reproductive years. Now, what does this feel like? Think about your crazy 20, 30 party girl estrogen, right? That we described. During perimenopause, she's staying up too late. She's going buck wild at the club. It's 4 a.m. and she did not get the last call signal that is like when you have too much estrogen, it's just like it's too far. It's too much for the body, and it can really be overwhelming. We'll just leave it at that, right? At the same time as your estrogen is having these massive swings, right, of potentially three times more than you've ever had, super overwhelming. At the same time, your progesterone could be dropping massively at the same time. So then you're not getting that nice balance, that granny girl restorative hormone that needs to be present to kind of soften the intensity of estrogen. So just let that sit in for just a little bit. And so your brain is recalibrating to this change in hormone. It's almost like estrogen's going out with a bang. She's having a rager. She's going to let it all out and going out with a bang before she fizzles out and chills. So if you are in perimenopause and you're feeling that sense of like, I mean, some of the feelings that I felt right after turning 40 were like rage was one of them, like just massive rage, extreme irritability, like an irritability that just didn't seem logical. And it wasn't just during my luteal phase. So these were some, um, indicators to me that something was off. And again, perimenopause, like very symptomatic perimenopause, can feel like the same exact thing as what I had, which was just hormonal imbalance. So same. There's a way to alleviate this to make it suck less. And we'll be talking about those strategies here in just a moment. So some of the kind of symptoms that you can look for and keep an eye out for during this phase are things like hot flashes, of course, is probably the most well known. And that's really due to this fluctuation in estrogen. Increased belly fat. This is really a big one for women who have never really stored fat in the midsection. It can be really a shock, 5, 10 pounds. And we're actually, as women in modern times, we're gaining way more weight in perimenopause and after than we did, decades ago. So it really is a thing. Insomnia, irregular cycles, and brain fog. These are all potential symptoms. Now, a quick tip here on HRT, so hormone replacement therapy. Here's the problem. When you take hormone replacement therapy during perimenopause, first of all, it doesn't work for everyone because HRT, like let's say you're at a peak estrogen moment and HRT is giving you more estrogen, that's the last thing you need. So for some women taking it during perimenopause, it can actually exacerbate symptoms and make it worse.